Hello everyone, this is Kenneth Marks of the Ancestor Hunt. I am exceedingly glad that you have joined me today to take part in this complete Chronicling America webinar. And what do I mean by complete? Most people, when they use Chronicling America, don't know much about it, don't know some of the resources that are available, and just jump right in and do a basic search. They may not know about advanced search, they may not know about the directory, they may not know a lot of things that are available on the Chronicling America website. So that is the intention of this webinar, to make you smarter, to help you search better, and ultimately to help you find more of your articles about your ancestors and those folks that are in your family tree. So let's get started. And what are we going to discuss today? Well, first of all, what is Chronicling America? We'll talk about that. We'll go through a site overview, point out all the tabs and all the places you can go and find things. Some hidden resources, at least I think they're hidden, and they're helpful. The directories that are available, which are exceedingly helpful for you, especially when not everything is online. I will show you how to browse. Browsing is an often unused resource when going through old newspapers, and it is very important in certain instances, and we'll go into great detail about that. We'll show you how to handle the images that you find on the website, and finally we'll talk about basic search, how to use that, and ultimately the best part of the capability of Chronicling America, and that is advanced search. Using advanced search is always the chosen way to do things, in my opinion, and I'll show you how to best use advanced search and hopefully find more articles than you normally would using the basic search, etc. So let's get started and find out what is Chronicling America. Well, Chronicling America is a collaboration between the National Endowment for the Humanities and the Library of Congress. It is called the National Digital Newspaper Program, and the result of that is the website entitled Chronicling America. There are about 40 states participating and growing. The two newest states from 2014 are Nevada and South Dakota, but many states have been as part of the site since 2005. And we'll talk about how these states get involved, what they do, etc. So we're going to talk about Chronicling America in a little bit more detail so you have the background. I think that's important so you can understand how these states participate and how they get involved, and ultimately how their newspapers get on the site. I will be discussing the newspaper directory and what it is used for and what it is good for. There are over 150,000 titles of newspapers that have been published in the United States, and only about 1% of them have been digitized and are available on Chronicling America. So what about the other 99%? What do you do about that? The fact is that there are newspapers out there that are in libraries and archives, in original newspaper form, in microfilm, and there are some, of course, that are online. The most important information that you can get out of the newspaper directory, and this is critical, is where are the images and the newspapers and the microfilm held, which libraries, which archives. If you are interested in a specific newspaper or a specific area of the country and the images are not online, what do you do? If you are interested in a specific one where you know your ancestors lived and you can't find anything about them, maybe they're on a newspaper that is not online. And what do you do about that? How do you take advantage of that? How do you find out where the newspapers are, and how do you search those? And the fact is, as I have said, most newspapers are not online, so this is a critical resource. You need to know about it. You need to use it if you want to make use of all the newspapers that are out there and find your ancestors' articles. We'll be talking about browsing. Browsing is sometimes a very unused resource, especially in this online world of growing digital newspapers. And that's the way things were done in the past when we didn't have online services for searching for newspapers. People went to libraries, people went to archives. They went through pages of newspapers one by one, either in a microfilm reader or possibly on the original pages themselves. Browsing is helpful in finding obituaries, for example. We'll talk a little bit about that and give some examples. And it is very helpful for ancestor stories that are published over several days. For example, if there's a court case that involves your ancestor, it's not just the filing of the court case or the commission of a crime that's important, if it's a crime, or if it's a civil case, either way. And you need to be able to browse to go from from day to week to find all of the information about that particular story. Why, again, is browsing important? Probably the most important reason in comparing browsing versus searching is searching requires an index. An index is created from the optical character recognition process, that is the scanning of the newspaper and the conversion of all those little dots into letters, etc. But unfortunately, as you well know, the quality of the original is not always good, and the OCR process can't always make sure that if your surname is Smith, that Smith is always the outcome. And I'll show you some examples of what happens after the OCR process is done and what the results are. And you'll be quite surprised that in many times the quality of the index is not very good. So browsing becomes an incredibly important technique for you to find what you are looking for. We will be talking about searching. There are two types of searches on Chronicling America. One is the basic search, and you can search by state, year range, and of course your search criteria, no matter what it is. And then there is the recommended way, which is advanced search, where you can select a state, select a specific newspaper, dates and date ranges. You can use any combination of words to look through and search for. All words have to be on a page as opposed to any being on any page, and you can actually search for an exact phrase. Another fun kind of capability is the proximity search, and that is, was word 1 and word 2, do they occur within 5 words, 10 words, etc. on a page? That is very useful as well, and I'll give you some examples. So let's go into the website and we will take a look at the website and all of the things that you can do to actually make best use of it and find what you are looking for. So this is the main page of the Chronicling America website. It is chroniclingamerica.loc.gov. That's how you get to the main page. So let's look through all the stuff that's on this main page to make sure you don't miss anything. First of all, there's a short description up here at the top about Chronicling America. The main tabs are Search Pages, Advanced Search, All Digitized Newspapers, and the U.S. Newspaper Directory. The basic search is done from this page, and this is where you can select a state, a date range, and this is where you enter your search criteria. You have the ability to subscribe to Chronicling America, and you can find out updates on new content. For example, what happened in December, which newspapers were updated, which newspapers were added. You can get it via email. You can also get it via RSS. On my website, theancestorhunt.com, every month I publish the newspapers that have been added during the previous month and or updated during the previous month. And it varies. It's anywhere from 50 to 100 newspapers that are added or updated every month. So it's always good to take a look at that article when it comes out, because if you are interested in a certain newspaper, or if you're interested in a certain state, for example, you can find out which issues, which titles have been changed, and you can then go back and search those for hopefully something new. So that's how you subscribe. There's also social media capability to share and save, and you can give feedback. It gives you up here at the top the pages available. As you can see, it's almost 9 million pages that are available on the website at this time. If you go to this stuff on the left, and this is what we'll go through first, you can go to About Chronicling America, and it gives you some background to read. It's interesting stuff if you're so inclined. There's some technical stuff about the site and the application program interface if you're a techie, want to know how they do things. Recommended topics we'll come back to in a moment, and then there's a help capability. If we click on National Digital Newspaper Program, remember, the National Digital Newspaper Program is the result of a collaboration between the National Endowment of the Humanities and the Library of Congress, and the result of that is this website. So let's click on that, and it'll give you some information about the National Digital Newspaper Program, and here's some stuff to read if you like. Probably what's most important to you is which states are participating. So let's go here and see what they are. As you can see, this started in 2005 and up through 2014. The grants are 100,000 pages or so at a time per institution, and the years have changed over the last almost 10 years now that it's been available. Where it started out was in 2005, the newspapers had to be between 1900 and 1910, but currently over the last 4 or 5 years it's widened to 1836 to 1922. And here are the states and the links to the state website for each of these states. And over here on the right you can see which years they were actually given a grant and which years they actually participated and provided digitized newspapers to the website. So let's go back and let's take a look at topics. Topics are interesting. It's what I call a hidden resource. People don't always know about it, and it's kind of fun. What the Library of Congress has done is taken interesting topics and collected newspaper articles about those topics. So let's take a look at this alphabetical list. If you're interested in alternative medicine, for example, from the years 1887 to 1918, the library has put together some basic information about that and some suggested search strategies and also some sample articles, which if you're doing research on a certain topic, it might be useful. Let's go back and let's pick one more. Let's say you're interested in Carnegie libraries, and there was lots of them built through philanthropist Andrew Carnegie back in the day. There's some important dates here, suggested search strategies, and some articles. So you've got the ability to look at things from a topic perspective. There also is a capability by subject category. This one is American Enterprise, Industrialization, and Development, and it's put in some some topics here: arts, education, and culture. So basically, it's subdivided by type, crimes, trials of the century, etc. And then finally, by date range, it's collected them by decade: 1830, 1840, 1850. So that's a fun capability, but it is also useful in doing research if you have an ancestor, for example, that was involved in the startup of Yosemite Park, or they were near Appomattox or involved in Appomattox, etc. Interesting stuff about Sherman's March, Seward's Folly, etc. So if you've got people that are related to that in your family tree or an ancestor, this is certainly a good place to start because you get background information, which is always helpful in building their life story. So let's go back, and what we will do now is see what else we have here. Interesting fun thing that the library does is you can click on 100 years ago today, which would have been in this date, January 23rd, 1915, and it shows you the front page of newspapers. In this case, there's 79 of them that just are examples of what happened 100 years ago. So if that's of interest to you, you can certainly click on that. So that's the overview of the site itself. What I would like to discuss now is the U.S. Newspaper Directory, because this is a very important resource, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Here is the main page after clicking on this little link, and it allows you to search for any of the 150,000 some odd newspapers that have been published in the United States. You can browse by newspaper title, so let's click A. And you can see there are over 7,000 of them, excuse me, that have starting with the letter A. So you can search through that if you want. That's kind of a long thing to search through. Or you can select a state, like so. You can select a county and a city and find out which newspapers were published in that area. So let's try one. Let's try Alabama, and let's try Calhoun County, and let's try Jacksonville, and see what comes up. And you can see there are 14 newspapers that have been published in Jacksonville, Calhoun County, Alabama. And you can go through if you wish and click on it and see what's there. And this is important. Whenever you click on one of these newspapers that are named in the directory, you will see some very important information about that newspaper. For example, this one is the Jacksonville Republican from Jacksonville, Alabama. It was published in that city. It covers this particular geographic area, who the publisher was, the dates of publication, in this case 1837 to 1895, some descriptive information. It was a semi-weekly, published in English, and it's got some notes about it, some library control numbers, and the most important thing about this is if you click on View Complete Holdings Information. This tells you where this newspaper is located today. So if you're interested in the 1850 run of the Jacksonville Republican, you could find it in the Alabama Department of Archives and Historical Library in Montgomery, Alabama. It lists the name of the holding library. It says unspecified, and basically usually available as is either unspecified, original, microfilm, original, or microfilm service copy. I'll show more of that later. And it shows you the dates that they have in their collection. And here's some more with additional dates, etc. And here, as available as original from 1837 to 1848. Microfilm Master from 1837 to 1838 and 1840 to 1895. So it looks like they've got quite a few there. And a microfilm service copy. So it also shows other places: Arkansas State University, Chicago Historical Society Library, Duke University Library, etc. So, and Library of Congress itself. So this will tell you where you can find that particular newspaper. Excuse me. So this is where you would go. Now, if you live in Alabama, Montgomery, for example, you can make an appointment or drop into the library, and hopefully they'll let you browse through this information yourself. If you don't live close to the area, then depending on the archive of the library, they may or may not help you with doing some research into newspapers that they have in their collection. In some cases, you may need very specific dates because they're not going to browse through 40 years worth of newspapers for you to find your great-great-great-grandfather. So it's important, though, to know where they are so that you can take the next step in actually finding what you are interested in. Again, I will repeat, and I'll repeat this probably again, not all these newspapers are online, so this is important information. And that is pretty much the directory. Let's go back, and I'm going to show you some other search techniques. You can also select when it was the dates of, the years of publication. In this case is actually decade, and you got the from and the to. So you can, if you pick a certain, let's say Arizona from, let's see, 1880 to 1900, let's see what comes up just for fun. And it shows you here that there are 305 newspapers that cover that particular time frame. And if you click on any one of them, you will see, for example, this one, the Democrat from Bisbee, Arizona. It shows you that this is the information about the title, the publication, dates of publication, etc. It's a weekly, and where it is held. Not much for this one, but that's good to know too. Excuse me for the cough, I apologize. So let's go back and look at what else we can search for. First we're going to clear it. You just click this clear button. You can search for frequency. For example, you can search for just weeklies or monthlies. You can search for different languages. For example, you can look for German newspapers. That's just for fun. Let's see how many German newspapers are out there. German language newspapers, I should say. As you can see, there's 2,500 of them. 2,500 newspapers that are in the German language in the newspaper directory, which means they have been published in the United States at some point in time. Let's clear it again. And we can look at types of ethnicity. Let's try African American, just for fun. And we can see that there are 2,400 African American related newspapers that are in the newspaper directory, which means they have been published, and you can search through those and find which ones are near you, or which ones are online, which ones are on microfilm, etc. So you can choose ethnicity. And one more example, and that is, let's say, Catholic labor unions. How many of those are there? Well, there are 3 newspapers that are related to Catholic labor unions. So let's go back, and that gives you an idea of how to traverse and search through the U.S. newspaper directory. Very, very important. So make use of this. It will be helpful to you. Our next topic is browsing. Let's figure out how to browse. And we'll discuss during the course of this section why we should browse. Again, not everything has been indexed properly for a lot of different reasons, which we'll discuss. And browsing is a critical part of your techniques. So let's go to all digitized newspapers. And we can show all digitized newspapers. As you see, there are 1,606 of them. And it shows you by alphabetical order of the state. Here's 4 from Alabama, several from Arizona, as you can see, California, etc. So you can scroll down that if you like, or you can select a specific state. Let's try California, and it shows you that there are 19 newspapers from California in the Chronicling America collection. Let's go back, and you can select by ethnicity. Let's say, again, African American. And we can see there are 44 newspapers filtered on African American available on the site. And lastly, you can again pick language. Let's pick German again. And as you can see, there are 26 newspapers in German that are available for viewing on the site. We won't browse for those because I don't speak German very well, and I don't know how many of you do either. So let's go to, let's go back to California. And actually, yeah, that'll be fine. Let's go to, say, let's pick the Los Angeles Daily Herald from 1884 to 1890. And this table here, let's show you what it means. It shows you the state, the title, Los Angeles Daily Herald, 1884 to 1890, browse issues, we'll show you that in a moment. There's 1,573 issues in the collection, and the date ranges from October of 1884 through March of 1890. Now I can click on browse here with this little teeny calendar, or I can go to yes, and it gives you information again, as we showed you before in the directory, about that newspaper. Title, who published it, etc. There's also alternative titles, place of publication. And over here on the right, for most of the ones that are in the collection in a digital fashion, you also get some interesting descriptive information about the history of that newspaper as well as its publisher. You can go to calendar view, which is the same as browse, or you can go to browse issues. So you can hit that little calendar from the previous screen. You can go to calendar view or browse issues. They all end up in the same place. So we'll click on browse issues here, and that will bring us up the calendar, hopefully in a moment. And let's see, let's try, it seems to be a little slow. Let's try calendar view and see what happens. It's a little bit slow. There we go. And this is the calendar view, and this is where you can browse from. You can just show all front pages if you wish, if that's of interest to you. It tells you that single edition dates are in bold, and multiple edition dates are in bold italics. Again, that's for newspapers that say were published in the morning and the evening during the same day. You can select the issues for specific years, 1884 to 1890, and let's just pick one. Let's pick November 1st, 1884. And what it will bring up is the 6 pages of that newspaper for November 1st, 1884. And let's go to, so if we want to browse through it, we can go to image 1. And I'll talk about detailed image handling a little later, but I'll just give you some basics right now. You can hit the plus to zoom, one more time, and as you can see how it's a little fuzzy? If you just wait a moment, Chronicling America website will clear it up for you. And here we see a Chicago man claimed to have seen an animal half dog and half alligator. Well, that's interesting, but I doubt if that's true. But it's an interesting little story. And you can also use your scroll wheel to make it bigger and smaller. You can go to plus again to zoom, minus to make it smaller. If you're way over here, see how this little red box shows you where you are on the paper? You can go back home here, and again, I'll show you more about the image handling a tad later. You can, as you remember, there were 6 pages, so you can go to page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 this way, or you can scroll through by going here, page, and it should come up in a moment, hopefully. And there you go, there's page 2, etc. And then you can also, if you're interested in browsing to the next issue, and let's do that, we'll go to this right arrow here, and this should bring up, hopefully, the next day. Since this is a daily newspaper, we now have November 2nd, 1884, image 1. And there it is. Now, what I want to show you regarding browsing is the following, and why browsing is so important. Let's go to text. And what that does is that shows you the result of the OCR process and the text that was created from that process. The text that's created from the process results in the index. So let's look through this. It says Los Angeles Daily Herald, that came out okay. News of the World, War of the Races in Louisiana, the betting in New York, a fatal fire panic, and then Iv a Glufau, whatever that is. And as you scroll down here, you can see words that were not exactly as they were in the original. By a Toshatril Predator, I suspect that is really Associated Press. New Iberia, TTEUOFG. So if there, the moral of the story is, if there are search terms that you are looking for, and let's look at this one, John Goofoy, I presume that's not that person's name. So if you're looking for somebody who's, maybe his name was Guffall, G-U-F-O-L-L, I don't know if that's a real name or not. If you have a search term in the basic search or the advanced search that says G-U-F-F-O-L-L, you're not going to find this page because the OCR process produced G-U-F-O-U-I. So that is why browsing is so critical, because all of the newspapers that have your search criteria, and let's just pick a surname like Guffall, G-U-F-F-O-L-L, you are not going to find all the newspapers. But if you know the location, and if you know the newspaper, and you know the date range, you can indeed browse through newspapers. Obviously, you're going to have to maximize them so you can actually read through them and find things. But if it's important to you, you will do it. And so that is the main reason why you want to browse. Now, an aside here about another reason that I like to use browsing, and that is two that I mentioned during the introduction, and that is where I'm looking for an obituary. As a good example, I have a lot of ancestors and relatives who either lived or currently live in the Oakland, California area. The main newspaper there is the Oakland Tribune. And years ago, for many years, the vital statistics and obituaries were, say, on page 17. So what I would do, since I'm always wary of the OCR process resulting in an index which would allow me to find that person's name, I would go to page 17 on the date of that person's death and see if there was an obituary. And sometimes it actually was published on the same day, by the way, at least in older days. And then if I didn't find it, I would go to page 17 on the next day and the next day. And I might do that for a week or probably a maximum of 2 weeks. And I have found many obituaries that way that I did not find by searching. So that is one reason why you want to use browsing, especially for obituaries. I found that very helpful. The second hint is related to stories that go over multiple days. Court cases is an example, and I think I mentioned that earlier, that if you've got a story or a major event where one of your ancestors was involved over multiple days, again, that's another reason to browse, because you might find that person of interest in newspapers over different days. And again, you're always limited by how good the OCR process was, and that's not necessarily just a software problem. It's generally because of the capability of the scan process and the capability of, the quality of the original. Because if you look at this original, you can see some things are light, some things are dark, and I'm sure you've seen originals where there's torn parts, there's creases, there's ink spots, etc. So that's always a good reason why you want to browse. And that covers pretty much the browsing part of this webinar. Let's go back, and we can, as I said, we can pick different days, we can pick different years, and go from there. So that is how you browse. It's a very important part of your repertoire in terms of finding newspapers and articles about your ancestors. Next, we'll cover image handling, and if you just wait a moment, we'll get right to it. So here we go. Let's just pick any old image and show you how we can do all of the image handling capabilities and help you locate the articles within a page that you've already found via browsing or searching, and what you can do with them. So this is the image. It's put in the middle, and let's go over all of these capabilities up here on this bar right here. We can zoom with the plus. We can make it smaller with the minus. If we've gotten it cattywampus, not towards the middle, whoops, let's see. And we can always hit the home button right here, and it recenters it for us. We can go full screen, like so, and there's a toolbar up there if you like. And let's go back to regular, and let's look at the rest of the capabilities. Image 1 of 6. That means there were 6 pages in this particular collection. We can go to page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 from here. We can also go to succeeding pages with the right arrow by clicking that. And for some reason it doesn't seem to be coming up, so let's go back. And we go to image 2 that way, or we can go this way. And there's image 2 or page 2. We can see all pages at once if we wish to, and up comes all 6 like so. We can click on any one of them if we choose to. Now if you want to go to further images, we can go to, further issues. So this issue of the Labor World is January 23rd, 1915, and if we go to the right arrow, the next one is January 30th, 1915. The next one is February 6th, 1915. So this looks like a weekly. We can see all issues at once. I'm not going to do that because there may be many of them. And we can go back just like we did with the pages. So we can scroll through pages by image 1 through 8, or actually select a page. We can scroll through with the right arrow. We can see all the pages. We can go backwards and forwards with the issues. We can see all issues. Okay? We showed you text, and I'll just do that one more time. And this is a result of the OCR process. And as you can see, most of the words are pretty good, but there are some anomalies in here. I, Y, I, T, F, K, T, T. Obviously that didn't come out real well. And so, let's say we found an article on a page and we wanted to save it. Okay? Let's, don't have any small articles here. Let's go to page 2. There we go. You can save the entire page as a PDF. Now, I always do this, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. We click on that. It's going to bring up that particular page in PDF format. It'll bring it up online, and we'll just wait a moment while it's rendering here. And what that will enable us to do is it's saving it here. You see the little blue bar there. What that will enable us to do is manipulate it as a PDF, and hopefully it'll move a little faster so we can see it here, because it's not very fast. There we go. And there's the page. So what that brings up, and at the bottom is the PDF toolbar. What is included here is a little floppy disk, which means I can save it. I can print it. It's page 1 of 1. I can zoom with the plus, like so, or I can go to the minus, like so. Okay. Now, to do to save it, you just click on the floppy disk icon there, and then you can just save it. Obviously, I would change the name from SEQ-1 because that's not going to be very descriptive. But the main reason I want to save the PDF is twofold. One, I want, for my source citation, I want the information about this particular page. We know that the title is The Labor World. The location is Duluth and Superior. It was published on Saturday, January 30th, 1915. This is page 1, and it gives you the volume number, etc. So you've got the information for your source citation. The other reason is it allows you to select later on through the Adobe Reader capability certain parts of the image. So let's scroll a little, let's zoom a bit. And these are all pretty big articles, but let's just assume that this little paragraph here is one that we're interested in. I won't show you how to manipulate that with the PDF toolbar, but if you've got a snipping tool of any kind, this one is the Windows snipping tool that comes with the software. Here it is up here. See where it says snipping tool? What I would do is I would draw a box around this. Oops, we don't need the other title. And now I can save it. I would probably zoom it a little larger before I saved it, but now I've got the clipping, and I can do a file save as, and I would certainly give it some descriptive information besides capture here to tell me what the clipping is about. And I always use the source information in the file name so that I've got it all in one place. So I've got the PDF of the entire page, and I've got the clipping of interest, both of which go together, and I can work with them later for whatever purposes I have to save that clipping. So that is how I would do it. And let's close out of the clipping, and let's go back. And that's the PDF. Now I'm going to the third thing on this little 4-part right toolbar is JPEG 2000. I can save this page in JPEG 2000 format. Now JPEG 2000 is a little bit more of a complete way to render an image than normal JPEG, which most of us are used to. JPEG 2000 is a little better. The problem with JPEG 2000, in my personal opinion, is that there isn't a lot of software out there that allows you to manipulate images with it. So I don't use it. If you are used to using it, you like to use it, I would recommend it, but it's not one that I choose to do just because there isn't a lot of software that I have in my collection to manipulate images in JPEG. Now, the other thing I want to show you is this little clipping and scissors tool over here on the right. Now, I use the snipping tool from Windows, but you can also use this particular feature that is part of the Chronicling America website. And that is, it brings up the page in JPEG format. Now if I wanted to download it, I would do so. Let's download it, and we'll show you what happens. It's downloading it now here, as you can see, and it's 213K, which is not very large, and that is unfortunate because what's going to happen when we bring up the image, you will soon see. And there's the image. The problem is, if I want to zoom the JPEG image, you can't read it because it's just a small image that they produce on that particular page using their clipping / snipping tool. So that is not a feature that I use. Maybe you can use it if you like. You can also print the image. There's a persistent link, which is also useful as well, because if you save that link, that will take you directly to the image. And let's click on it. And there it is. So that is something that is also helpful as part of your source citation, because now not only do you have the name, the title, the date, the page, etc. as part of your source citation, now you have a persistent link which shows that you actually acquired this image online, and if anybody looks at that source citation a couple years from now and has that persistent link, they can go directly to the image as well. So that is very, very useful. And let's see what else we have regarding image handling. That's pretty much it. Here's the source citation here: Labor World, Duluth, Minnesota, 30th January 1915, Chronicling America, blah blah blah, and the persistent link. So you can use that if you choose to as part of your source citation. In fact, you could probably just copy this and you're ready to go. It doesn't have the page number on it, which I prefer to keep as part of my source citations, but this would certainly be pretty good for you to use. That is pretty much how you do image handling. Just to refresh, you're zooming, tools here, traversing through the pages right here, traversing through the issues from date to date, and then what you do with the actual image itself. You can bring up the OCR text, save it as a PDF or JPEG 2000, and you can actually clip in JPEG with some informative information about the page and source citation information. So that is what you do in order to manipulate images within the Chronicling America website. Our next section is going to be about searching, and that should be fun. We can do the basic search right now, and then in the next section I'll do advanced search. The basic search is pretty simple. Let's go back home, and you can do that by just clicking on Chronicling America here. And as you recall, the basic search is always on the home page. You can select the state, and let's pick California again, and let's pick 1836 to 1886, and we can put in a search term. I'm going to put in a surname from someone in my family tree, and that is Braunhart, B-R-A-U-N-H-A-R-T, and we'll do a search, and that should bring up quite a few. There's 89 results, and it shows them here. You can view it as a gallery, which shows you the actual image and the information about that particular issue and page, or you can show it as a list. Depending on the length of the number of hits, you could have a rather long list. And here is, it shows you 20 at a time, and I can just click on the image here. From here, it's all personal preference in my opinion. I like to see the gallery because you may notice in this particular display of the images that it has little red highlights of the search term. And you can see there's more on this one and more on this one. Some of them have just one or two, some of them have multiple ones. So let's just click on one. This one has quite a bit, from 1880, sorry, didn't click on it correctly. And there from the Sacramento Daily Record Union, we have some information about Mr. Bronhardt, so let's zoom in. And it talks about he was a politician, so he was in the paper quite a bit, which was kind of nice to find out quite a bit about him. So that's how you use the image handling part of basic search when you get a result. And then I can do let's do a quote. You can do that. And well, you do all the years this time. This time we'll use his first name in quotes, which means both Samuel and Bronhardt have to be together in the index for me to find pages. And let's hit go. And here you can see 216 results. And as you can see, the first one has him quite a bit in the page that came up. And the reason was this article is about him being charged with perjury. So there's all kinds of hits on his name, Samuel Bronhardt, throughout this entire page. And it looks like that's published the same time that Cornelius Vanderbilt died, just as an aside. So that's how you do the basic search. Again, you select the state if you choose. You can select the from date, the from year, the to year, and then you just enter your search criteria here in this box. And that's it. That's pretty much all there is to the basic search. The advanced search is where you can actually home in on search criteria that you wish to, and we'll go into that in the next section. Okay, advanced search is our final section, and that's the meatiest, and that is the one that's going to get you where you want to get the best, in my opinion. So that is really easy to get to. You just click on the advanced search tab right here. And before we do anything, let's go through and we shall show you all the options you have at your use to be able to find things. First of all, you can select a state, like so. You can select multiple states by holding down the control key. Here in this case, we'll select California, and we'll just take that one off and just do all states. We can select a specific newspaper we wish, and a lot of scrolling here because there's, as you recall, there was 1,600 of them. You can select a year range, like so, and here's the from 1840 to 1904, for example, or a date range. If you want to do that, you just click here in the from box, and you can scroll through and find the exact date. Here's January 15th, 1836, and the same capability is on the to box, and that would be, let's say, December 1st, 1922. So let's clear that with the clear button, and we're back to square one. You can limit a search or your searches to only the front page, or if you want to just look at page 5, you can do that. Not that you necessarily would want to, but you have that option. You can limit the language to English, French, Spanish, or German, and this is where you do your search criteria. Any of the words means that if you put in more than one word, that you will find any page that has any of the words on it. It may not be those two words together, but it's any page that has either of the words on it. So let's, using my friend Samuel Bronhardt again, let's try that. And you separate those by a space, and let's see what comes up. And you can see there are 100, let's see, no, that's 1.5 million that has either the word Samuel or the word Bronhardt. Now, it is generally displayed when you sort by relevance by the number of occurrences of either of those words. And so this one has a lot of red highlights on it, so that means the word Samuel or the word Bronhardt is on that page, and there's a lot of them, so that will be displayed first. You can also sort by state, by title, or by date. Now, I'm not going to do that for 1.5 million results, but that's certainly an option. And then you can show 20 or 50 results per page. So let's go back. So there's 1.5 million with the word Samuel or the word Bronhardt on it. let's clear this out. Make sure we start fresh. And let's do it with both of the words. So this one says that a page has to have the word Samuel and the word Bronhardt in it. And let's do a search. And there are 473 of those. Again, sorted by relevance, state, title, or date, whatever your choice is. And again, you also have the option of showing only front pages. In this one, in this case, this is a front page here. You can say it's image 1, but this is page 9, page 4, page 10. So if I limited it to front pages, it would be certainly less than 473. Okay, so let's clear it. I always start with a clear. And let's use the phrase Samuel Bronhardt. Since this is a rather unique name, I've never discovered another Samuel Bronhardt in all of my searching. We're likely to get pretty close to 400 and I think it was what, 473? Well, apparently not. There's 209 with the phrase Samuel Bronhardt. So, as you can see, we went from 1.5 million to 470 some odd to 209, all with the same, pretty much the same name. So you want to make sure that you choose very carefully whether you're doing any of the words, all of the words, or a specific phrase. And then finally, this is called a proximity search. You put in the words of interest with a space in between each word, and you can choose either 5, 10, 50, or 100 words of one another. What that means is those two, I'll say 2 for now, those 2 words have to be within 5 words of one another, 10, or whatever you choose. So I'm going to pick one, and I'm going to use the, not Bronhardt this time, but Braun, and I'm going to select California. And now I'm going to put in a space, and I'm going to show you a little trick for finding obituaries. I'm going to put in the word beloved. Lots of obituaries say so-and-so Braun, the beloved husband of, so-and-so Braun, beloved son of or daughter of, etc. And so that is a kind of a key word that you can put in a proximity search that may allow you to find an obituary that you normally may not find. And with a common name, it's often very useful. Also, the word dear, D-E-A-R, is commonly used in obituaries as well. So that's kind of a fun thing to try. And let's try that out and see what happens. And as you can see, there are 20 results from the state of California with the word Braun and the word beloved within 5 words of one another. And let's pick the first one. And it looks like there's a lot of, let's see what it just shows us here. See, there's beloved, 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 a lot of beloveds in obituaries. And let's scroll up to Braun, and lo and behold, there it is, Paulina Braun, beloved wife of, beloved mother of. So that's a really cool way to find obituaries, is use the word beloved or dear, D-E-A-R. And that's how you use proximity search. And I could show you a bunch of different examples, but that's basically how it works. And it is a very cool feature that a lot of websites have, but Chronicling America has as well, and I would encourage you to use it. So, just to refresh, this is how you do advanced search. You can select a state or multiple states, a newspaper or multiple newspapers. You can use a year range or a specific date range, which would actually give the month, day, and year. You can limit your search to front pages or specific pages. And you've got language options, and you can do the any of the words option, the all of the words option, the exact phrase option, and the proximity search. And that is, in my opinion, the best way to do searching. It gives you much more options than the basic search, which, as you recall, was just selecting a state, a year range, and the search criteria. Search criteria here doesn't provide you necessarily with the any, the all, and the exact phrase options, and nor does it do the proximity search. That is advanced search, and again, just to refresh, that is my suggested option for you to do searching. So let's go back and summarize. And basically, what my message is here is Use all of Chronicling America. Don't just get stuck on the first page and use the basic search, because the advanced search is certainly much better and will give you more results and more results homed in on what you want. Make sure you learn how to browse, because browsing will help you overcome some of the OCR deficiencies. Again, not necessarily because of the OCR software or even necessarily the scanning, but because most of the time older newspapers, just because of their brittleness or quality, are very hard to get exactly correctly in the index that's created. We showed you the directory. The newspaper directory of 150,000 some odd titles that have been published in America. That's very important. Why? Because not all newspapers have been digitized, and certainly we showed you that it was just 1% or so in Chronicling America. Even though it's growing, it's going to take quite a while to get over 10%, much less 100%. So you want to learn how to browse, and that's especially true in looking for stories over multiple days, obituaries, etc. Learn how to browse, learn the directory, learn how to use the directory, because the directory is going to show you where newspapers are that have not been digitized, and it shows you where they're held, which is very important information, because you want to visit or contact those libraries and archives to help you find the clippings that you are interested in. Image handling we covered as well. So you've got the newspaper directory, you've got browsing, you've got the basic search, and you've got the advanced search. All 4 different types of tools that will allow you to find your ancestors' articles. If you want more information about newspapers and historic newspaper searching, articles about techniques and tips, as well as there's over 12,000 links to online newspapers on the Ancestor Hunt newspapers page, I would highly encourage you to take advantage of that facility, because there is a lot there that will help you become a better researcher, and it will help you be a complete researcher of Chronicling America. I want to thank you so much for spending your time with me today on this webinar, and I sincerely hope that Chronicling America will now be a resource that you can make better use of and find more ancestor articles. Thanks again.